Hey, legends. Good afternoon, one and all. Couple of minutes past midday here in London, making it the same UTC. I'm very happy November the 11th to everyone. How absolutely mental is that? It's been a very quick and very turbulent year, as I'm sure everybody here is more than aware of. So do give us a little hello in the chats if you're here. Angela Bowood, great to have you with us. How are you doing? Thanks for joining in today. Hopefully got a few of you. Just give it a couple of minutes and we will look to get things kicked off in style. So for those of you who maybe aren't aware, today's session that we want to look is, again, a lot of these things are we've reached out to people, not just in, the recent, shall we say, downturn in the market, but previously as well, to really kind of understand what people, members, others have been struggling with the most. All right. Chili, that brilliant nickname. Love it. Hello to you too, my friend. So today's session, we want to just I want to cover with you guys compounding confidence and how small wins build belief and momentum is one of the major things that we run into in these markets. And I've had the pleasure of being here at TBN for almost 4 years now. I worked for a fund based in Germany before that, and obviously had been, a student of the market for a number of years before that as well. And getting to work with a lot of traders, professional traders, as well as, members here and other traders that are really kind of set on pursuing this as a career. One of the things that never ceases to amaze me actually is people oversizing, overcommitting, and really kind of not looking at the game of trading for what it really is. So what we want to do today is I want to kind of share some bits and pieces with you that I think that really helped me in my career. All right. And I don't want it to be a really overly preachy session. I really want to encourage comments in this. I want to know where your struggles are, what's going wrong for you. Please don't hesitate to share. Believe me, the amount of times that we have people that share and other members either message to that comment or get back to us and just say, do you know what, the question that so-and-so asked just really, really helped me. I'm suffering something similar. So never forget that there's often a lot of shy people out there, right? Don't be shy. There aren't any silly questions unless you start spamming the chat or being a twat, in which case then I'll just kick you out, all right? So there's the only rules. Ultimately, these sessions are completely made for you guys to have some time with us and then to look at that. Sonda, hello, my friend, or Sander, depending on where you are in the world. I have a very dear friend from Holland called Zonda. And yeah, just a really, really top guy, a seriously good trader as well, right? A major investor, both crypto and traditional markets. So while a few people start to come in, I want to kind of align my thought process here with all of you, what I want to talk about today. And what I want to talk today is about trade and size management, all right? How we can utilize profit that we make on trades and profit taking to underpin what we can do moving forward. Imran Khan, hello, my friend. And our wonderful Jojo. Great to have you all here, guys. Remember, this is a very, very safe, open space. The whole point here is to, I'm going to say a few bits and pieces, and then I really want to dive in. I really want to understand what your issues are. What are you struggling with? Does anything that that we're going to cover today really ring a point? And if it doesn't, then share it, and we'll absolutely cover it in the session. We're going to look to run this for probably around about an hour. So sizing in out of trades, profit taking, I think is probably one of the areas that people struggle with the most. Now, one of the tricky things here is it very much is up to a trader, what they're allocating to trades, and people have very different approaches to this, let alone in terms of trade management. People that hold with conviction to targets, all right? Other people that, employ trailing stop losses or take multiple profits on the way to targets. Now, one of the things that I really struggled with in my career, especially in my early days, and actually something now that, is something that I'm still very conscious that I have to work on, is the difference between being right and being profitable. All right. And this is a really, really big thing, especially, as you start to build your careers or your profile. Maybe you're somebody like me, for example, who came from, who had a great love and passion for trading before I ever stepped into realms like Twitter or put yourself out in the public eye. It's, it's a pretty intimidating place to begin with. Trading is quite an insular thing. So, as a trader, you're spending most of your time alone, unless you do have a really good team or people to work alongside, or a good community. Obviously, I'm very, very proud of the one we have here at TBN, not just the team, but the members as well. The whole point is, sharing good, relevant information, really helping everybody pursue that kind of financial freedom. But, people have a very sporadic approach to trading, right? In terms of their strategy, their system, their edge. I would imagine that most people, most traders, or people that say that they are traders that you speak to, if you ask them to define their edge, the very best traders I've ever met will tell you incredibly quickly what their edge is, how they trade the markets, right? If you don't really understand that, then remember that you're competing in arguably the best funded, highest resourced, and most brutal game around. Yeah, I mean, you're going up against trading funds, banks, people like this that have literally hundreds of millions, billions in resources available to their trading teams. So to have an understanding of who you are and to really focus in on a niche is the first thing I would say to everyone, regardless of, excuse me, regardless of, how you're position sizing, what you're trading. If you don't really understand what your system is, what your edge is, where you're trading from, then you're asking for a little bit of trouble. If that is you, first of all, the recovery program's open. If I think we've made this public for people to say, so if you're not involved, you can find information in the description, come along, join, it's completely free, get access to all of the courses, right? Find out the type of traders that you link with the most. Maybe you're somebody that, really likes using real kind of classic level support resistance, someone like Pit, for example, someone like Trading Tank as well, really, really good exponents of that. Maybe you're somebody more on the intraday side of things, in which case then, it's probably me that you would look to for that. Or maybe you're someone that looks at the market from a fundamental perspective as well, right? In which case, obviously, we have the wonderful KZM. So if you do fall into that bracket, then the first part of your discovery here is understanding what type of trader you are. When you look at the charts, what looks quite clear, what looks quite obvious to you, and then off the back of that, what is your edge in the market with that? Is it the conviction to trade, highly specified levels of support and resistance? Are you somebody that's looking a little bit more of the sort of supply and demand trading? Are you someone more in the kind of concepts that I use, which is looking more at the market from the perspective of, auction market theory, the fact that price is always in an auction, that we're looking for expansions, consolidation, price to be in balance, out of balance, and then how we measure and how we judge or prepare ourselves to take those. Something else that I want to cover today is your trading plan as well, right? Saying to yourself, okay, what do you do every morning or every afternoon whenever you can come to the chart? Are you somebody that's just throwing yourself into the charts, looking at all of this stuff and just going, somebody on Twitter's making noise about being long, so I'm just going to look for longs here and just, burn some more money on alts that are basically starting to bleed out. So we want to address that today as well. And good, we've got a nice question here from Angela. So let's have a look. I lost a lot on 10th of October. Yeah, sorry to hear that, Angela. I mean, most people I know were hit quite badly in that as well. I was in a few trades at only 2x leverage, but I was still liquidated. I'm now trying to build back again, but it's so frustrating with these market conditions. I think you echo the sentiments of most people at the moment, Angela. And so I think first of all, this is a really good session to be part of. Secondly, I think it's really worth. We did a recording a few weeks back of our Monday night market analyst team, and Trading Tank gives a really exceptional explanation as to why that liquidity cascade happened. All right. And that's, ultimately, I think one of the most brutal things about that is that it wasn't your fault because you're using good risk management, as were a lot of people. People still got absolutely obliterated in there. Shay, hello, mate. Good to have you with us. And a lot of people got obliterated in that. So first of all, it's allowing yourself to step back and then review what happened. All right. So You controlled your leverage well, which is fine. Maybe take a look if you were looking using cross or isolated margin in terms of how you were liquidated. Were you taking that extra measure of control? Ultimately, if it wasn't anything that you did wrong from a technical perspective, then was it the fact that you were too exposed to what was on the exchange? Should it be a case of looking at, okay, should I have moved some of those tokens? Yeah. Or should I have taken some of that off the exchange? Were you kind of a little bit overexposed? And again, it's a very, very, very painful lesson to learn. I got stung really badly back in the day. I lost, actually probably, worth probably in and around about $1 million, maybe just over now, in lost assets when I got scammed, and I got scammed by a fund that I was working for as well. That made it even more horrible because basically I'd worked for them for several months, a lot longer than that. But in the previous several months, they stopped paying us. We were putting all of this money in to just try and build as much Bitcoin as we could as a team. And the owner of the fund decided that, he was going to disappear with all of that. You sit there and you hate yourself for a while, and something that can be really confusing about that is not understanding why it happened or not having a reason for it. And sometimes you need to, and this isn't to be too preachy, and I'm not going to get too deep into psychology here because there's people that teach it a lot better than I do, but is to be able to forgive yourself, right? And to be able to step back and say, okay, look, these things do happen. The Polish have a wonderful saying for this, and it sounds quite cold, but jest, yak, jest, which means it is what it is. And sometimes it just gives you that little relief to say, okay, do you know what? I was hurt in this. Now what I need to do is I need to take the lessons from this. Someone much smarter than me said once that, if you're in a game like trading or in anything in life where basically you're either paying for your education or you're risking money to achieve other things, whether that be gambling, trading, anything like that, whether you're a poker player, for example, then you need to obviously come to terms with that straight away, that there are a lot of stresses and there's a lot of frustrations and there's a lot of times that we feel really, really lost. And what we need to do is we need to have an intimate understanding of our systems, the market conditions that we need in order to kind of try and regain that focus. And within that, the reason that I really wanted to take this session, Compounding Confidence, is because for me, confidence is almost everything in trading. I've got folders full of dozens, probably more systems that I've built over the years that are profitable systems. I've built automated trading systems that still manage some of my portfolios. And I look at all of that and I think, like, do you know what? There's ways I've made money in this market with moving averages, with Fibonacci's, right? With using other indicators, with the Birb Pro, for example, which again, while you have access to this, guys, it's something I would really, really try to utilize, right? I'd really, really try to learn, especially if you plan on staying here for a little bit longer and you really need that extra kind of influence. And if not, then, you can use other free indicators and bits and pieces if you're somebody that struggles with that. For example, most people, I think, could probably benefit from just, if you're an intraday trader, using like a 55 period 1 hour moving average and a VWAP. Yeah. So why am I raising these points? Because it's all about confidence. Yeah. And how we build confidence in ourselves is a very, very tricky thing, right? Because confidence is an easy thing to shatter and a very difficult thing to build. So where do professional traders' confidence come from? Where, when you see these traders turn up and they speak and they're just like, I'm long from this level. Actually, Pitt is one of my favorites for this because he doesn't say very much. He's a man that speaks, or a person that speaks with action, right? And he just says, this is my level. This is where I think buyers are going to be. This is my risk. I'm in, right? Bang. And then he holds it to target unless he sees something that he doesn't really like. That lack of procrastination allows you to execute and allows you to execute effectively. And that all comes down to understanding your system, right? And we're going to make a little bit of time for this towards the end to kind of field questions that you've got about the systems and bits and pieces so that we can really kind of dive in and find out what your major problems are, or not problems. Maybe they're, maybe you've just got a really good system, but you're, lacking a bit of conviction. So how do we build around that? And how do we make that a little bit better? And Imran, that's a lovely thing to say. Thank you very much. But I agree with what Imran's saying here as well. Like, probably some of the least sexy parts of trading, the most important, unfortunately. Understanding risk management, trade management, everything seems really quick when we watch it on YouTube, or when we back test things with replay, or when we see these things on Twitter. But actually, as an intraday trader, I'm mostly trading on 1 and 3 minute charts for execution, mostly 1 minute charts. And, you look back through a 1 minute chart and you see all these candle prints and you think like, oh yeah, that flies past. But, it really, really doesn't, especially when you're under the pressure in the situation of having skin in the game. That means having money on the table, having money in the trade. One of the greatest Forex traders of our generation, an American chap called Brent Donnelly, always says this, said, don't ever believe that you're impartial when you have a position on, because as soon as you have that position on, you have skin in the game, and basically you just turn into a bubbling pot of emotions. So how do we level that up? Well, first of all, understanding of the system, understanding the conditions that we want to trade, and stepping in every day and asking ourselves if we have a really clear and obvious plan. So that's what I really want to kind of run through with you guys today as well. And like Jojo says, Jojo's a really great exponent of this, right? Somebody that's invested in the crypto market, somebody that trades traditional markets as well. We have a lot of conversations in the legacy channels and really understands the dynamic interchange between the two. But yeah, Jojo never uses leverage because the market can be unpredictable. You can never regain back your feet if that's all the savings you've got, and we see this a lot, people that are pouring in, and Twitter isn't often the best space for this. There's some good people on it. There's a lot of bad actors as well. But ultimately, a lot of people that are trying to convince you all the time that this is the last opportunity you have to make life-changing money. If you miss this bull run, there will never be another one. Just every year is always the same. Ultimately, it's all nonsense, because you never, ever, ever want to be feeling that, imagine having a career where you can only make money one in every 3 years, for example, or if you look at cycle lengths, etc. No, like the very best traders make money consistently all year round, whether it's in crypto, whether it's then broadening your horizons and moving out of crypto into legacy markets. There's always ways to do this. The key thing is having the system, the confidence and the belief in order that you can execute. And one of the first things that I want to say, and I'm just going to draw a line under it here, is most people, most of you, should be cutting your asset class down considerably. Yeah. So focusing on one or two assets alone, be that Bitcoin and Ethereum, again, understanding what type of trader you are. A little bit different if you're an investor, right? This is much more about your kind of research base. But again, don't forget that like experts and masters of any industry are people that just spend countless hours just pounding on their craft. Yeah. Becoming the very best at something, understanding that niche, having a clear blueprint for what you need to do to succeed. So if you're someone that's sitting there and you're thinking, okay, well, at the moment, I kind of know what my system is. And I had this conversation with a member actually yesterday, and they were like, well, I kind of trade support and resistance. I was like, well, how can you kind of trade support and resistance? They're like, well, because I kind of feel like I know, and immediately kind of feel like I think I know this might, and is all of these kind of, all of these kind of words that really lacked direct context. Yeah, and that's because there's a lack of understanding, and people don't want to admit that, especially something like trading. There's still a lot of bravado in the space. There's still this kind of idea. I remember when I came on the scene and I got absolutely brutally ripped apart when I first started working for TBN, because I put a piece out about liquidity and showed these two boxes on the chart in terms of resting liquidity. And I'd done them with these broad areas that price could travel into. And then because, unfortunately, we live in a world today where so many people would rather try and hurt other people or kind of put them down to fill their own empty void inside them. Somebody had taken my post, a big account, reshared it, removed the comment that I'd put on it that said, this is all about context, these are liquidity areas. And they basically just said that I was this useless trader, that these were support and resistance areas. I didn't know what I was talking about, that, TBN were hiring this absolute muppet, basically. And it really, really affected me early on. Now, you have to grow skin as thick as a crocodile, right, in this game now, and you kind of laugh it off, but it still kind of knocks you and it shocks you and it draws you back a little bit. And I found myself in this massive Twitter argument with these people that had much bigger accounts. So I'm just getting hundreds of people messaging me, calling me a joke, all kinds of horrible torrents of abuse. And you have to then kind of factor that in, and you have to then have the ability to step away and ask yourself the big question. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because when I stepped away, I then kind of calmed down a little bit, spoke to some people, kind of got my head back into it. And a few days later, the plan that I'd shared originally had then, played out quite nicely. And I'd kind of showed that post again and kind of put it with a really positive glow and overview of, why you shouldn't listen to haters, why there's many different ways to trade this. You have to understand yourself, and the conviction and belief you have to have is in yourself. So shortly afterwards, rather than, take the other side of that argument, those traders just blocked me. But it tells you a lot about the space. The reason I'm mentioning this as well is a really, really important thing we need to move on to next, which is ignoring the noise. A lot of your confidence is going to be knocked. And I'm working with this wonderful student at the moment, who's one of my mentoring clients, and really, really lovely, really, really switched on, real passionate, incredibly hardworking. But really, 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 and a lot of people I come across has this issue with seeing other people making money and feeling like they need to be that person. Yeah. Well, I saw this guy there and he did this thing and he made like 10K in a day. And like, I feel like I did this. Look, if you can't make $10 into $20, you're never going to make 100K into 200K or, $500,000 into $1 million. It doesn't work like that. Ultimately, removing the size from the market, don't feel like this is your only opportunity, right? And, Miguel, how you doing, brother? Good to have you with us. Sorry, I didn't see you sneak in there. I just realized that I've left my cup of tea in the other room. So I'm going to go and grab that. And if you would like to, I think it would be great if you could let us know in the chat if you're somebody that would consider yourself a trader or if you're somebody that would consider yourself an investor. 20 seconds. You really must consider getting a Burko or some kind of tea making facility in the office. Gassior, still learning what's the right move for me. Great, and that's brilliant as well. And Jojo is horrible. There's a lot of toxic people on Twitter and X, but there's also some really good people. And again, it's how you utilize it. But what I'd recommend for most people right now, and let's actually put this, let's get a list going, shall we? So the first thing I would say is size down. All right. And these aren't necessarily in any particular order, just the order that we're kind of covering them. All right. Noise, cut, Twitter. Okay. So two first things that we got on the list here is size down. Second one is cut the noise, cut Twitter, social following, and limit your time exposure to it. I really can't recommend this enough. And the reason for that is because you're basically going to breed a lot of bad habits. You're going to be focusing a lot more on what other people are doing. You're going to see all these things, people trying to, sell you these magic systems, these indicators, these Discord groups. I know we're a paid Discord membership, right? And I'm sure, our messaging, the same as a lot of other people's is that, this is something that has a difference to it. We believe that ours does. Ultimately, that makes sense to a lot of people that work with us, especially people that stay with us for a long time or a reasonable time. There's other people, they're in other great groups, and there are other fantastic groups out there as well that do it. And there's other ones that are terrible. But ultimately, it's kind of like a sport or a hobby or having a passion for something. You don't just wake up one day and say, right, I'm going to force myself into crocheting today. That's the thing for me. I want to be a crochet master. The problem that you've got is you're probably not going to have that direct passion for it. If you don't have the passion for it, you're not going to have the longevity to learn it properly. And if you don't have the longevity to learn it properly, then the chances are you're going to act irrationally and either give it up or do something stupid. The most stupid thing you probably do with yourself crocheting is accidentally stab yourself with one of the needles. Short-term pain, ultimately, nothing too massive. Worst thing you can do, by pursuing trading in the wrong way is you can bankrupt yourself, or you can lose property that you shouldn't be losing, or you can lose money that you shouldn't be losing. And the ramifications and impact of that are far, far deeper because it doesn't just affect you, it affects your loved ones and your friends around you, all right? So that's why you should cut the noise. And you should also, only follow people that you really, really respect and people that add value. For example, my tiny little Twitter profile, I have 10,300 followers in that kind of region. And I follow 691 people. Most of them are companies that I've come across. They're funds that I've either traded with, they're professional traders that I know or other traders I know, or sometimes people that I just have some kind of social interaction with, or it can be charities that I work with or charities I follow, etc. How often do I look at Twitter? I mean, I'm rubbish at it. I should post more to build my social following, but I'm so inactive on it that, you know, an argument for my side is that I actually need to be more active on it in terms of what I'm posting so that I can build that kind of engagement. Ultimately, I'm a trader. That's my passion. That's where I make my money. It's where I make my living. It's where I've built my career. So Twitter's kind of, you know, it's a side part of it that's nice to connect with good people, and it's brought me really, really good things in terms of great connections over the years. But what I use it for, when I'm using it, when I'm following people on it, they're people that I have mad respect for, people that align with systems that I want to trade. Yeah. So a little extra caveat to this, I think, under point number 2, is only follow people that add value to your lives or your trading, right? I would also recommend to not follow anybody that is a perma bear or a perma bull, because they haven't got a clue. Promise you that. It's all just clickbait. I'm not going to name names actually, but there's some of them out there. If you see these idiots come out laughing about the fact they're being liquidated and they're losing millions, or if you're looking at these idiots that just keep telling you sell your house or do whatever to buy this or buy that, then do it. One person I don't put in that bracket but does do some of that sometimes is Bitlord, and he's just a crazy mofo. I've known him for years, and actually his heart really is in the right place, but his messaging can be a little bit strong sometimes. So you cut the noise. What do? You buy yourself mental bandwidth. People do not put enough on that. By the way, Jojo, I just saw the rest of your comment after the X. I really appreciate that. Thank you. So, you know, if you're constantly clouding your mind with jealousy, with hatred, and remember, the media these days, and social media is the microcosm of this, is mostly designed to make you feel like crap. All right. Fear sells, hate sells. You know, like someone that lives in Britain, what do I see? Well, actually, I went to Jersey a little while ago, like the island that we basically stole from France. And it's really interesting because it was just amazing being there. They're like a massive tax haven. They've got a great economy, really safe. You need like 40 million liquid UK pounds just to be considered for a residency there if you're not a native local. And the money gets reinvested in the island. It's a brilliant little spot. Anyway, we put the news on. We went there with a few friends and put the news on one night as we were just getting ready, and it was incredible. They were talking about this long-standing history between the football tournament between Jersey and Guernsey, these two kind of, you know, British islands that are kind of out in the French Channel. Then they were talking about the idea that, you know, someone had taught a squirrel how to like water ski, right? And then the ducks and the geese that come in every year, they're having to change the colour, the farmers, because it's quite hilly Jersey, change the colour of the plastic sheeting that they put down to protect the crops, because all the ducks and geese think that it's water by the way it reflects. So you would just have all these ducks and geese landing on these massive slopes, and this big comical event of thousands of these ducks and geese flying down these slopes into people. Like, the news was just refreshingly banter-filled, right? Or it just had some good news stories. Yes, it covered serious stuff, but it gave us a broader spectrum. Then I look at the news that we typically get pumped in by the BBC, and you expect that every day you step out of your front door, you're going to get attacked by like rape gangs, and that there's people stabbing everyone, and that nothing's safe, and the government are coming for all your money, and there's the biggest migration of wealth. A lot of that stuff's true, but a lot of it is also true to the fact that it's probably not actually going to affect you. Right. And that even if it is, you can spend your whole life worrying about everything. Yeah. So what people don't do enough is breathe the positivity in themselves. Take a moment to reflect on things that you've done, how far you've come. So the third point that I want to make here is to take a moment each day to appreciate your efforts and your journey. If you take that moment and you don't feel like you know, that you've really achieved anything, or you feel a little bit lost, you feel like you don't know where you are in your journey, then that's a really good thing. You might think, how the hell is that a good thing? Because you know what you need to fix. Don't look at problems and think, God, I hate myself because I don't know enough about this. Go and learn that. Don't sit there and think, oh, do you know what? I keep making these mistakes and I'm never going to make it. Find a way to stop making the mistakes. You know, I'm somebody that suffers very, very badly with ADHD. I know that I have a concentration issue. I have to do loads of things. Like my desk is covered in Post-it notes that leave myself little reminders to things that go off on my phone. Weirdly, one of the things that brings me great peace is trading, because I find myself completely immersed in my system, and I find that structure brings me peace. And cooking, love cooking. Again, structure, away from things. I'm busy, I'm creating. It feeds my creative side. But discovering that's really, really important, right? So if you do understand, you say to yourself, do you know what? Even say tomorrow you step in, you think, do you know what? I was going to take a trade today, but from what I'm learning lately, I just decided, you know what? I'm going to paper trade this for a little while I build my confidence. And then when my statistics start to say that I've got a higher win rate than loss rate, and I've got a system I'm confident in executing, then I'm going to step in. Well, your moment of reflection that day should be on your growth, should be on the fact that you've mentally compartmentalized the issues you had and the problems you had before, and now you've taken positive steps to rectify them. Make a note of that in your journal. I know, again, we're back to the non-sexy parts of trading, right? Risk management, journaling, mental state, yawn. All of those things are what will separate the best traders from the dust that unfortunately lives at the bottom of this industry, which is filled with the seared remains of people that, you know, ultimately aren't either making the right steps to learn and then operate those systems, or aren't bringing in the right mental constraints and emotional controls in order to trade them. Most of the traders that I see fail in this game isn't because of technical reasons. It's because they fail to execute the plan that they set out, or they fail to plan, right? So we're going to come back now because I really want to see a few of the answers in the chat. I've left it kind of where it was, so hopefully there's a few interesting, well, not interesting ones in there, but so we can really address it. So what have we got then? So Gassior, still learning what the right moves for me. Perfect. Well, you're in a great place then. You're in a Discord that gives you access to trading courses, right? So what I'd love to see you do is maybe share a little bit more in one of the chats about who you are, what your struggles have been, or what you're interested in learning. Also, don't forget that we've got the trader channels on the Discord you have access to. Each professional trader that's part of our trading team has their own channel where they share their setups, their processes, their systems. Ask them questions about it. Be like, whoa, do you know what? KZM, I was just in your fundamental channel as someone that's an investor, which is like Yarek says here. Is that right? Okay, I'm an investor. Great. Well, you've immediately got an alignment with the fact that you know that you are. Someone like KZM, he's printed what his like process is in terms of how he finds these on-chain gems, how he uses the systems he uses, how you can get access to those systems, most of them for free. And you can just literally copy that process, take the parts that really work well for you, and then start to refine that over time. You've got that blueprint, right? If you're somebody that loves to trade and you see someone like, you know, Trading Tank's channel, you think, I love the way he gets his levels. How does he get his levels? Just ask him. That's the beauty of the access you've got. Ultimately, you have this huge resource here, including the trading team. Most of the traders here, and even ones that have been and gone, have trading courses available through WAP. So get in the chat, tag the team. You can always tag at Nest Team, and then you can get access to that. Our wonderful JoJo's obviously often kicking about in there. Give her a little bit of a break UTC afternoons because it's not, it's middle of the night for her. But there's always somebody you can reach out to that can point you in the right direction. So utilize the resources. And actually, do you know what? I think it's such an important point here. Maximize your available resources, right? Now, that doesn't mean take the $100 you got left in your trading account and go and punt it 20x on some random meme. It's the opposite of what that means, right? It means that right now there's loads of people in this Discord that simply aren't making the most of it. People kind of in the chats a little bit, might watch a webinar here and there, and then you see the activity kind of dip up and down, and we monitor where the activity is happening, and hardly any of it's happening in the places that I would expect when I started to learn to trade. And I was very fortunate to have situations like this where people that I respected opened up their Discord for trial periods or came back in and I didn't have a lot of money in the early stages as well. And I really wanted to double down on my learning. I just reached out, I asked questions, I stayed in touch with people, I asked when there were promotions coming on. I just used every availability that I had. If I went on there, I would go on there, watch the courses, and I would copy everything I can. I would just screenshot everything, and you might only have a few days left of your access or whatever you have got left. Just absolutely abuse it. That's what we're here for, right? And that's what you should be doing. So Jojo, swing trader, and a very good swing trader, I have to say. Obviously, Yarrick, absolutely investor for sure. So Gasanor, okay, mostly swing and intraday trading. Awesome. Well, I think the big question for you now then is, okay, how much time do you have to bring to it? As an intraday trader, one of the things I love is that I can trade, high volatility sessions. I focus quite heavily on New York. That's normally arranging me. I'm normally from around about 12 to 1:30 p.m. through until about 5, 6 p.m. every day. I'm very, very active in trading. And that's mostly the AM session in New York. I will trade the PM session sometimes, but I try and confine it to that. But then you need to know, okay, are you available those times? With swing trading, it's something that you can set an alert. Say you're waiting for an hourly or a 4-hour candle close, as your trigger. Well, when you get that notification, even if you are at work or you're doing something, the chances are you still have time to get onto your phone, open your laptop, go on the exchange, look at the levels that the trade is at, wait and say, okay, well, this is the level I want to buy out. I'm just going to leave a limit order here and manage my risk below here. Or, I'm good with this here where it is, and then I'm going to just ping, and then I'm just going to buy that. I'm going to market entry, and I'm going to manage my risk. And actually, sometimes it's quite freeing because you just want to set your entry, set your stop loss, your take profit, whether you're using multiple take profits, whatever you're using there, or whether you set yourself an alert at a certain level that reminds you to go take a look at the chart, remove the noise, and then all of a sudden, if you have a busy work life, if you have a busy personal life, home life, family, etc., then it keeps you in the game. It allows you to do it. Otherwise, what you're going to end up doing, pouring loads of time into learning how to intraday trade and scalp, and then maybe not have the time to execute that. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Not trying to kind of swing you either way, but I think you've answered a really good question there. And the next one I would ask is exactly that. Imran, my friend, since I hardly hold any asset in my portfolio recently, while I'm always trading both personal and prop firm accounts, exactly those that make me a trader. You're definitely a trader, Imran, no question of a doubt. So Angela, I have a little invested but want to learn to trade. I've been a TPA member for a year but had a full-time job plus family commitments, so I haven't used all the resources available. Yeah, excuses. Well, I tell you, there's a few things I love about that. First of all, very, very quick to identify where you are and what you want to achieve, right? And what I love even more is the fact that you identify an issue and then afterwards put in brackets excuses, right? And while there's a little light-hearted bit to that, I really admire the willingness to kind of realize that in yourself, because we're incredibly good at making excuses. I was with a mentoring client I've worked with since, I don't know, before I was a TPM, I think, and he's a professional trader, an exceptional trader of the Aussie dollar and the euro. And this is one of the funny things that we have, and we call it a twat filter. Funny enough, you might know that term from a bit of British slang for you. And basically, the mistakes, the issues that are being made on a regular basis are the fact that there's always excuses for stuff. Do you know what? I saw this amazing trade, but I wasn't at the chart. And I wasn't at my desk. Well, why weren't you at your desk? Not being at the desk isn't an excuse. You need to remember, you're a full-time trader, and they're your work hours. You wouldn't be a surgeon and be like, well, I could have done that heart surgery. The person died, but I just wasn't there. Well, were you supposed to be there? Well, yeah, it's my working hours. Then make sure you're there, right? Identifying the reason that we do these things to get out of it is difficult. And I love what Jojo follows up with here. And it's exactly what I was about to come up with as well. Not the Aristotle quote, because I'm just not that smart, unfortunately. But the fact that you can just allow 30 minutes every day. So when I really decided that I wanted to pursue trading, I was running companies here in London. I started a few companies. I got funding for a few companies. And my life was absolutely mental. 15, 16 hours days, as well as, short commuting, traveling around quite a lot. But I was obsessed with it. I'd got the trading bug. I know a friend of mine who used to trade on the London Stock Exchange. I had some great conversation with them, and I was just like, right, this is me. This is what I want to do now, right? So what I had to do was I had to decide what time I could do it. I had to get that past my partner at the time, right? Our home lives, the fact that we already didn't spend a lot of time together because, of my work schedule, and we would have like weekends, a bit of weekends together, but weekends basically for me were the only periods that I could study. And I had to make a decision that I was going to get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock, Saturday and Sunday, work until 8:30, when I would then, we would have a tea and a coffee in the morning, have some breakfast together, and then basically, do all the bits and pieces that you do. And then I was just really open with her and said, look, this is a big move for me in my life at the moment. So I also want to dedicate a bit of time in the afternoon. And she said, fine, look, actually, there's things that I do, or, there's bits that I want to do here. Might be playing a bit of PlayStation, might be watching something or thinking, might be going out with friends or lunching or whatever. Fine. Saturday, Sunday, every week, I had 2 hours in the afternoon, and then I had from 6 until 8:30, or I was actually getting up at 5:30 in the morning. I made that time for over a year, and I think I missed 2 days, 2 weekend days throughout that entire period. Now, you might not have that amount of time, but even like Jojo's saying here, 30 minutes can make a world of difference. Often it's the commitment of building positive habits. There's some brilliant books out there about this. About building and maintaining positive habits, and how negative habits are very easy to make and are very destructive. Positive habits are much more difficult to make, but when you get them cemented, when you get them solidified and they become part of your routine, they're one of the most powerful things that will underpin your progress. So you've already got a good bit of information here, Angela. You understand, you've invested a little, and you seem to be quite happy with that. But you really want to learn how to trade, right? You've been a member at TBN for a year, which is wonderful to have you with us, but maybe you've not been as active as you want to be. So what are the reasons for that? Maybe you're somebody that's quite shy. Absolutely no reason, absolutely nothing wrong with that. Some of the best traders I know, are quite shy. I'm the opposite. I do talk quite a lot, but in that come other issues. I have to calm myself a lot. I really should make more time to breathe. I have to consciously allow other people to enter conversations, or I can just basically bulldoze through them. And I can't imagine that's a pleasant experience. But it also means that with my ADHD, I tend to approach things in a very scattergun approach, right? Where I'm just like, I do this now and that, and I want to do this. And then 1 minute I'm studying this, and the next minute I've had my attention taken and I'm deep into an article that I've seen on Twitter. So what did I do? I said, well, I can't trust myself to just do it. It's like Haribo, right? Or whiskey. Ridiculous comparisons, I know. If I keep Haribo whiskey in the house, chances are I'm going to eat the Haribo and drink the whiskey, right? I've been through a really big process where probably several years ago now, I was borderline functioning alcoholic. So I came completely away from alcohol for a while, and now spent this long battle with kind of making sure that it doesn't become habitual. I was using it as a relief, as a mechanism for getting to the end of these long, stressful days, and just bang, okay, I'll guzzle a couple of big tumblers of whiskey. And yes, very nice whiskey. And I love my whiskey, but I wasn't doing it because I loved it. I was basically doing it to try and curb the anxieties I was feeling. And I realized that, not just for the health reasons, I need to find other ways to curb that anxiety. And the more fun version of that is Haribo. I'm just a nightmare with Haribo. I can take or leave chocolate. I don't really have many vices in terms of that. I eat very well. I'm back to exercising again regularly, and used to play sport at national level, for example. So I've always kept myself in relatively good shape. But good God, if you have Haribo in the house, then forget about it. I'm never going to have the willpower. What does all this rambling mean? Well, it means just don't keep fucking Haribo and a whiskey in the house, right? You don't want to drink whiskey. If there's no whiskey, the chance your efforts of going, your willpower wanes, and you go, sod it, give me the whiskey or give me the Haribo. Well, where is it? Well, it's not here. Well, where's my nearest shop? Okay, 15, 20-minute walk away. And you're just a lot less likely to go and do that. So my ex-business partner and I used to call this ape management, right? Meaning that the ape is based on a form of what's a really good psychology book called the chimp paradox. It's about the idea that we will have three main components: the chimp, the computer, and the human. The chimp is complete emotion. The computer can only process logic that's put into it by the human. And the human is kind of a mixture of both, but the human's job is to kind of take the emotion from the chimp, reason with it, and then decant that into logic that can be put into the computer, right? And then it becomes binary. So I realized after you go through the book and you take this test that I'm like 90% chimp. So the way I live my life is very emotionally driven. I'm a very emotional person, stuff like that. So I know I have to curb that in trading. So I need to kind of put those measures in places and markers in place to do that. So it's a really, really good process to go through, is to list your kind of strengths and your weaknesses. Even do like a SWOT analysis, right? Your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, but really looking at, okay, what are the things you do best? Probably not the things you need to work on the most, but you still need to keep working on them. What are the things you do worst? And where people go wrong is they chastise themselves for it, and they just expect to be good at it. Yeah. So like me, I'm just not going to eat Haribo. Do I eat Haribo? Of course I eat Haribo if it's in the house. So where was the kind of leveler for me was well, just stop keeping Haribo in the house. And then some people would say, isn't that really defeatist though? You're not really using willpower. You're just limiting yourself. Yeah, but I'm not eating Haribo. And then it stops me thinking about Haribo. So then I don't want Haribo. And if I sit here now and I think, God, I want Haribo. Well, I know there's none in the house. So that fleeting want goes away. And it just helps you to refocus. All right. And a great quote here from Jojo as well, from Aristotle. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellent then is not an act. Oh, so I think I lost connection. Excellence is not an act, but a habit, right? And this is the whole thing about breeding good habits, all right? And there's a brilliant motivational video called Why Do We Fall on YouTube. You should check it out if you have the opportunity. It's got these brilliant quotes in it, and one which is from Stallone in Rocky, which is, it's not about how hard you hit, it's about how much you can get hit, get knocked down, keep getting up and keep going. I don't know any traders actually that haven't built super normal wealth or a lot of wealth and blown it all, you know, and not learned from that. And the people that haven't come back, but the people that have come back much better for it. So it might feel like you're alone on these things at the moment, but you're really not. Okay, and this really could be, if you are in the hurt at the moment, this could be the thing that really defines you. Gassior, and really apologies if I'm murdering your name, by the way. I'm on the mentoring plan with JustPit. Absolutely fantastic. Went through the courses on what I absolutely love that. Really want to dive deeper into making a system and a setup, the B and C setups where I can make flawless execution. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I would say is, and you know, you got one of the best people to teach you this and to kind of lean through it. But you know, at any point, if you feel like you don't have the ultimate conviction in it, again, it comes back to our point number one on the chart here as well, which is sizing down. You know, you limit your wins, your returns, of course you will, but you're ultimately you're limiting your losses as well. Then when you have the ultimate conviction, as a good friend and one of the best traders and was an excellent mentor for me, Trader SZ, he always taught me, was you'll know when your systems are working really well and the trades seem easy and you're hitting your signatures and your setups. That's when you put your foot on the gas. The rest of the time, trade with caution. Your job as a trader is to stay alive, yeah, and then maximize the good times when, you know, your system's really kind of coming through. So, and understand the correlation between legacy markets, crypto, and market microstructure and macro structure. Sure, I think what you want to look at here, right, and again, Pip will run through this for you as well, but understand that correlations kind of come in and out. The main things I would look for in terms of their relation to crypto markets are things like the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, because they're very technology focused. So, you know, they're full of risk assets that basically correlate quite well with crypto. Correlations are never 100%. They flow in and out. Often we want to see risk off indicators, you know, for example, you'll see it on my chart here where the DXY, for example, the volatility index. Yeah, the VIX is one of my favorite ones. It's basically, think of it as a fear index for the S&P 500. It's just showing the put options that are taken out, basically meaning the active puts that you think of them as shorts. So the higher the VIX starts to rise, or if it's really going up, normally doesn't mean really good things for crypto, yeah, or risk markets. Normally puts a bit of pressure on them. We can see today, look, we've got an elevated VIX up 2.16%, relatively flat DXY. That's another instrument that we use for correlations as well. You want to see that, ideally negative, but again, flows in and out of correlation. And then your equity markets, focusing on the NASDAQ, which this is based on the NQ contracts, so the forward-facing contracts, because I actively trade these, and ES, which is the S&P 500. We can see while they're negative today, crypto's really going to struggle, yeah? But again, some are leading indicators, some are lagging indicators, so really having an understanding of that. But they're really good places to start, I would say, is looking at the DXY's interaction, looking at the VIX interaction as well. And you can just do these things as well, yeah? See at the top of the screen here, you've got the ticker, BTC USD in this case. If you get the plus symbol that's here, right, you can go along and just type VIX in here. I've already got it on the list. If you add it as a new price scale, all right, what we can do is this. If we now get rid of the drawings for a second, and then we're going to turn this to a line chart as well, just to make it look a little bit clearer. Well, what we can see here, yeah, is this correlation. So as we can see, we've got the volatility index. We need to check it here. It's a blue line. What's happening? We see as the volatility index is trending lower and lower and lower. This is allowing risk markets to breathe, like Bitcoin, right? What you can then do as well is to kind of match that up is you can add like the NASDAQ on here as well. And you see how relatively correlated the NASDAQ and Bitcoin is. So we can see that if we're looking at something quite simply like strength in the equity markets, and the indexes, by that I mean the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, and then we're also looking for example, weakness here in the VIX, the volatility index. If we want to then look at the correlation the DXY offers, which is the yellow one, we can see the DXY is like quite closely related to the VIX here, yeah? So with a low and falling DXY, yeah, we can see, and a low and falling VIX, as we see here, we're seeing strength in equity markets, gives us that little bit more conviction here in crypto as well. If we look at, say, what's going on at the moment today, and obviously because they're on the price scales, they look a little bit muddled, but we can see what we've got here in terms of the elevation, right? You've got this one, which is the DXY, which is higher. We've then got this one here, which is the NASDAQ. We see the DXY and the NASDAQ running together here. What we see here is the volatility index. As that really starts to drop away, look how that's putting strength into the dollar and into equities. And we're not seeing that follow through in the black line here, which is crypto. So it shows us that that kind of risk allocation towards crypto isn't quite there at the moment. All right, but start with that. Do definitely drill into Bit. Like I say, it's not always as straightforward as that. You know, we don't just look at the charts every day and go, oh, fuck, the VIX is falling, let's just long some Bitcoin. But having that understanding, again, breeds confidence, yeah? And if you find there's an area that's not giving you confidence, then find a way to work on it for sure. Chill Lee, again, do love that name. At this stage, just to lose, need to learn so much more. Long-term bags, all down, swing trades, mostly losses. Brilliant. But I mean, look, the first thing that you've done is you've been smart enough, or at least shrewd enough, to find opportunities like this, to get into a Discord when you maybe got limited capital, when you have the advantage of kind of getting in and learning from traders that have done this for a long time and people that do it professionally. It's just how we've always worked at TBN from the moment that Adrian hired me. The premise was very, very clear. We only want to work with professional, proven traders who rely on their income from trading, so that people that learn from them understand what it is to be in those shoes. Not necessarily people that are, you know, no offense to those, because I know some great traders that do this, but other people that might have big names on Twitter, but actually their income is coming a lot more from other deals that they have or other lines of work. But, you know, they're active traders to a degree, but you do really want to learn off of professionals, and not just the ones that we've got here, other really good professionals in the industry as well. But I tell you this right now, you might be a loser in terms of what you're talking about financially, right? But ultimately, in my eyes, anybody that's willing to put themselves on the line and learn to better the lives of themselves and others isn't a loser. There, you might feel like that right now, and you might feel lost. But what you've told me there tells me a lot. Yeah, long-term bags all down. Okay, no problem. So we need to maybe reassess the system as to why they're down, and what you maybe think you did well, what you didn't do so well, and what you're not going to do next time. Yeah, why are they down? Was everything left on exchanges? Did you get caught in the liquidity drive? Were you just too exposed? Were you using funds that maybe you shouldn't have been using? Don't forget, you know, whether you're, you know, I'm not young now, right? I'm not old, but I'm not young, right? So, I look at people and work with people that are 50, 60 years old that are preparing themselves now for the next 3 to 5 years, saying to themselves, because who right here, right now, would I say to you, right, okay, in 5 years, you could have life-changing wealth, whatever that life-changing means to you, yeah, if you work hard enough and you commit and you focus. But to do it, you need to probably suffer quite a lot for that 4 or 5 years that are ahead, and you can't expect any returns. Most people that are coming into crypto at any point are doing it for super normal, quick returns. And yeah, it rewarded some people, especially in the early days, but it's not really how people make money. It's not how funds make money. It's not how professional traders, banks, all these people, these real institutions of the world. I know Bitcoin and crypto tries to fight against that, but in truth, we need to learn a lot from these markets, because these are the people that do it so consistently. People sit there, and one of the big jokes in the industry is, oh yeah, the day Goldman Sachs opened their crypto desk, you know, in the last bull run, basically marked the top of the bull market. Yeah, that's all well and good. So they forayed into that, but they controlled their risk. And then guess what they did? In the following year, they only had, I think, 62 non-profitable days, and those days were, their losses on average were between, I think, 12 and 22 million a day. The rest of the days, yeah, thinking all of those days are there, so it's 3 times more, were profitable by an average of 22 to 68 million a day. So, you know, there's a lot of lessons in there that we can use, all right? But ultimately, understanding yourself, who you want to be, what type of trader you are, is so, so, so important, all right? It goes back to these points that we were talking about earlier. hasn't saved, unfortunately, but we can certainly run back through them. So let me just look through the questions, and then we'll look to start to get this wrapped up and see if you've got any other questions. Well, from Miguel, well, I have several accounts for different strategies and trade every day. Cool. Okay, so intraday trader, or you mostly kind of swing trading, Miguel? Oh God, yeah, Gassy, or sure is it possible to make such a system and set up alerts in a way that I can cut down time spending looking at charts without being left behind? Sure, yeah, you have like the screeners on here, for example. You can go onto these screeners and you can use these things on here to say to yourself to only highlight stocks or just crypto, yeah, or whatever you want. If it needs to be within a certain price point, if you want a percentage change per day, right? You can also add a whole host of other things that are on here, yeah? Like market data, technicals, financials. You can look at the VIX being above a specific level to tell you if it's trending higher or it's dropping lower. So there's definitely ways to do that. I mean, the key thing that I would recommend to anyone, right, is I would say understanding your levels and your trading. So let's say, for example, okay, you're a swing trader, yeah. Now, one of the key things that I shared on here, and this is just the same chart that I always have, right, is that this is a key level of interest for me. Why? Because we can see it clearly capped the market through here, and price just had really clear interaction with me on this. I just really understood that, okay, if we're really strong, we're holding above these levels, we're probably going to move higher. However, if we see some wick rejections from these areas, then the chances are higher that we move a little bit lower. What I then do is then move that onto lower time frames to find specific signatures in price that then allow me to trade. Okay, so for example, I said that this level here would be key for understanding whether I think we're going to get some short-term relief here. I don't know if this is going to be a relief bounce. I don't know if it's going to bounce at all. But what I do know is that there's a lot of liquidity resting under here. It's a really long wick. Yeah. So let me just give you an example of something else. Not the best example, but a local example. And it did run both. But look at this low in comparison, right? What happened when we came to this low? Price has closed a massive candle through it. And okay, then rejected here. What does that tell me? Well, it tells me that this low probably doesn't really mean that much. And it's understandable when you've got this low next to it here, right? So where did price really drive down? The thing you need to remember about liquidity is often the major participants in this market are hunting areas where they can get pretty much guaranteed liquidity to get their fills. And where you can guarantee pretty much there's liquidity is below old lows and above old highs. That's why, price magnetizes to areas like this. And then we start to see absorption, you start to see those wick rejections. Yeah. Then that's ultimately what's happening here is these buyers are getting absorbed by the sellers at this level. The sell wall is absorbing all those buyers. They either run out, that momentum then shifts, and then what's happening is price is then looking for the last point that it was considered value. And they're typically these consolidations that we see before any major expansion. Yeah. Consolidation in here before a large drop. Yeah. Price works its way back up to retest this area. Sellers regain control. Sellers regain control. So what's our trade plan? Well, really simply that if this is the area that sellers are in control of, then what we want to see is those sellers out of control. And we want to see this level moved above, and then this area start to hold, and then we can look to trade it higher. Ultimately, if not, then all we're asking ourselves the question of is, okay, well, in this example, with price action as it is today, what have we done? Well, we've held this low. Yeah. Price ultimately couldn't get back down to this. And this is, for me, this is a really key low that sits above this consolidation that led to this massive move higher. So for me, this is a really key target for me down in the kind of 94s. So what can I do with that information? Well, quite simply, I just need to have a plan for it. And my daily plan for this is super simple. Any reactions down here, like when we saw these wicks come in and start to get absorption here, no problem taking some intraday longs from here. Why? Because we've had this sharp, inefficient move down, and the market loves to come back and fill these inefficiencies. We can also see this consolidation before price moved away. So what do I know? Well, I don't know anything. My assumption is that if this is the area that's controlling the market, this is where the sellers are controlling the market. It's led to this big move down. Price is now consolidated in here. Yeah, and just think of it like this. This is just a range. Yeah, and we'll look at it on a lower time frame as well, right? So this is just a range in here. This is just another range in here. What happened? Price broke down from here. It's then seeking value lower. This is then where it gets acceptance, gets back into balance. Yeah. Then this is where price breaks out. Now our assumption is that price is at least moving higher by some form. Yeah, and if I really want confirmation, I need to see this area reclaimed to move higher. Immediately, my trade plan is really clear. And if I just remove those, and then we go down onto a lower time frame, say like an hourly, now we can really start to see the range. Yeah, we see what happens with price here. You know, if I just get rid of these quickly. Yeah, what happened in this area here? Well, price comes into the range, rejection at the high, from the low to the high. Then look at the momentum as price gets back down. And then again, look what happens in here. Just a lower time frame version of that. Price consolidates in this area. What happens? Price breaks out, retests it, and then moves lower. Price ultimately just moving from these consolidations and breakouts. So if I'm in here now, yeah, when we saw the expansion out of this, here, strong move up, yeah, rejection, price got underneath, retested, sold off. Yeah, couldn't get back above it here, sold off. Where's it selling off to? These lows, right? But these have been made on a higher time frame chart. What happens? Price breaks out once again. If we then highlight this area, let me do it with a box actually, so it's a little bit, yeah, just a rough kind of thing of the consolidation here. And we then move down to something on a lower time frame and we say, right, well, how does this trade here? Yeah, high to low, deviation of the low, fake out from here, price gets back into the range. Then when it breaks back out again with volume, you can see through here how price is then looking to move away, right? You can just refine this just by using different time frames and different applications, right? But understanding what to do and when to do it is the real key thing. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with here. And chill Lee, like just absolutely, man, just get yourself in the Discord, make the absolute most of it, ask all the questions, find all the resources, really drive into it. You've already kind of highlighted some key points there, right? Long-term holdings are a bit of a struggle. Get yourself on KZM's channel, look at how he manages his portfolio. He's absolutely exceptional at it. Look at the key triggers and the research he does in order to invest in those tokens and what he does. If that really speaks to you, that you want to go down, right? However, if you look at that and you think, I don't really understand this, I'm not really too keen about that, etc., no problem, right? Look at the swing traders within the team, you know, looking at Just Pit, looking at, you know, if you're somebody that likes volume, looking at like Rezoon, for example, dive into their channels, create a list of questions that you've got. You'll really feel something click. When you see a trader take trades in a specific way, it should really speak to you. You should think, oh man, like, you know, I can really see that. Actually, I can understand why they're doing that, why they're acting there, why they're taking that trade. And I feel like I can do that. You know, someone like Pitt, for example, who's just absolutely exceptional, you know, like support and resistance. I look, if Pitt was trading the hourly chart here and he'll have higher time frame context than this, then I know that he's going to be looking at something like this like I would. Something stopped the market here, something stopped the market here. I then look left. Pitt might not do this, but I'm looking left and going, what, is there a consolidation? Like I said to you, was there a major move? So what are we doing? So, you know, key rejection here, key rejection again here. This is before we've got this price action play out. Yeah. What's supporting the market here, here? Yeah. This is a little bit higher. I'm not as interested in this, but it does match up to the bodies, right? Then as I look left, I'm saying, well, where else was there rejection? Look at these wicks. What do we have here? This consolidation, all right? So what can we do with this whole area? Well, where has price not been able to close above? Well, this, right? So now all of a sudden I've got a playbook here, yeah? I'm either going to long this retest here on a lower time frame, or I'm going to look for a long in here. If I move to, say, a 5-minute chart and I say to myself, okay, well, what do I want to see? Yeah. Again, you could either look at consolidation and a breakout of the consolidation. You could look for signatures like I use, which is a sweep and a move to the other side to trap traders. Again, we come back in here, right? Maybe you took the long here today in London. You say, right, here's the breaker. There's the entry, right? There's the up move before the sweep of liquidity. You'll see it quite often on my charts, right? But just to give you an example, I call it the breaker line. Strong move above it, retest, price moves higher, right? Or maybe you're someone that takes these trades from higher up, or you want more conviction. Maybe you got stopped out this time. It doesn't matter. You're going to lose trades and you need to come to terms with that. The key thing is, you know, can you identify the key areas that you want to take trades from? And then if you can, having the conviction and the understanding about the entry signatures that you're looking for. All right, that's really, really, really key. So one thing I really want to kind of leave you guys on here is is really kind of looking at building a plan and making sure that you are sizing down, especially while you're learning. All right. So I think a really good exercise for everyone here, maybe not everyone, but for most people, would be to go over to the Discord, right, and go down the trader channels. And you can find them all. You'll see the name of all the traders on there: BC Richfield, Just Peer, Trading Tank, etc., KZM, Resume. Go down that list. Taha's in there as well. Taha, an exceptional trader, very, very underrated, does a lot of stuff in legacy markets, but you can cross over all of that onto crypto. Go on there, just take a brief look through the channels, skim through until you see them, either write a description about what they're doing or you see a chart, and ask yourself what really clicks with you. And if you're someone that feels a bit lost in terms of your systems and that, really focus in on that and then connect with that trader. Just ask a question. We work different hours around the clocks. We live in, all over the world, right? From, London to Canada to, Ecuador and Portugal, Europe, Poland, Dubai. So, you might need to be a little bit patient, but the traders will get back to you. And just, the best thing you can do is really condense it into a direct question like, hey, BC, I was, watching your channel and thing. I'd really love to know, why did you take a trade from here? What was your conviction about this long setup? What was your conviction about the short setup, right? Or, Trading Tank, I saw you take this amazing long recently on this. Like, how did you know that would pop when other things were really kind of lagging behind? And they'll give you answers, or they'll direct you to something they've posted in that channel. Then what I really want everyone to do, again, if it speaks to you, if not, or if you're at a different stage, not a problem, is then strip away the noise, limit yourself on Twitter, limit your interactions with anything that isn't bettering or driving your life forward. And say to yourself, the 20 minutes I wasted just flicking through pointless Twitter crap today, and it's very, very easy to do it, Twitter, Facebook, etc. In fact, I've removed myself from Facebook several years back and I've never looked back since. But then you look at all of that and you say to yourself, okay, well, I just bought 20, maybe 30 minutes a day. And then write yourself a structure, write yourself a plan. What do you do when you get up in the morning? Identify the hours of the day that you're able to bring study, that you're able to bring practice and constructive practice, meaning that you're not just sitting there pointlessly watching a 1 minute or a 30-second chart play out. You're doing an exercise like this and you're saying, okay, I'm identifying where I think the key resistance is here and where the key support level is, right? As we continue to hold above this, I want to make sure that I'm taking trade setups that look like X. Yeah, whatever that setup. If you don't know a setup, then again, look at the traders channel, ask them what their triggers are. I'm somebody, just for example, if it's an interest, I like to see it at a key level. If I wanted to long this, and this was basically like a microscope looking at this on a different time frame, yeah, I like to see price. And again, this is an hourly chart, so I'd use like a 1 to 5 minute to execute here. But I like to see price then engaging with this, taking a local low. So say it's a 5 minute chart, taking that 5 minute low. Yeah. And then I want to see this high that sweeps the low closed above. When that happens, I then open a limit order on this line. I manage my risk a few points below the low that led to the high being taken, because my premise is this. This is where the sellers have been caught offside, and this is where buyers regain the control of the market. There really shouldn't be a need for price to come back lower. If it does, I stop out and I reassess. But ultimately, I'm looking for this signature on a lower time frame when price engages with these areas here. So just to show you that, it goes like a 1 minute chart, because I wouldn't really recommend messing about with a 1 minute chart too much, but often you do get a lot of noise on these. I would then align that with volatility sessions. For me, kill zones. Again, you can ask. I can share you links so you can get these indicators that identify these. These are the pre-market through to the equity market open here. Yeah, so I try to trade in these areas because when the highest volume and volatility comes into the market, we have a sharp move down here. Yeah. What do? We then break out above this area. Here's the breaker. We see a high volume move. Yeah, you can see this even without using volume or without using something like the CVD, right? You can see here in the candle, big body expansion candles. Yeah, all the way down this move, the white candles, yeah, have been suppressing price, turning themselves into little areas of supply. Price comes up, retests them, sells off, sells off, sells off. Now that dynamic's changed, a key area we expect larger players to step in. So then this gives us the opportunity to step in the market. So we can get on the 5 minute, right? Because again, I think 1 minute is a little bit, shorter time frame. All right. So you're looking for the signatures here, right? You're looking for the signatures when price comes in here. As I explained to you before, right? Series of lows. Price has swept out the low. Here's the consolidation before the sweep. Big high momentum move above that. The big white candle. Nice area to enter, risk down either below the order block or down below the lows, right? Now we're back in here. What are we looking for? Well, quite simply looking for the same thing, right? Here's a low. So if price takes out that low, gets back above this consolidation and moves higher. Now I know I can take a trade based off of this. Yeah, that's just the idea and the principle behind it. So in 20 minutes, you can do a hell of a lot, right? You can go on an hourly chart. Absolutely just go back to any point that your heart feels content and say to yourself, right, if this is all the data I've got in front of me here, where's the key resistance? Yeah, here, right? You can see those all stacking up. So these consolidations are massively controlling the market, right, from a seller's perspective. So even if you're doing something as binary as just drawing a big box over them, I'd always recommend looking at areas that price drops quite sharply and then looks to retest. Yeah, and you can then refine that to order blocks and different candles. But as you just draw that across the market, as price comes into it, right? Rejection, 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 rejection. Look what happens. When do the sellers give up here? Or when are the sellers absorbed? Really simply, massive move above. Yeah. However you want to trade this, maybe you're a breakout trader or maybe somebody that's using SR and you're looking at that as kind of a wedge and you get the breakout, the retest here and you get the move higher. Ultimately, this is an area you should then be targeting and saying to yourself, right, that's where I want to be getting long from. And guess what? If you're wrong and price blitzes out and gets back under here, then this is a great area to look for shorts because price has now come underneath a key area of resistance. All right. So just make sure that you're learning constructively, that you're learning from good resources, from people that really have done things in the market, that have built these systems, that are trading these systems, people that you can have some kind of reliance on, then find other people that trade those systems and back that knowledge up and just, focus on making yourself better. Don't be in a rush to throw your money into these markets. All right. The markets will always be there. Opportunity will always be there. Your job is to not take yourself out before you've got the skills necessary to capitalize on that. Okay. So awesome. Apologies because I know we ran over probably by about 10, 12 minutes or so, but I did just really want to kind of finish off with that. Hopefully you guys have found the webinar helpful. Please do reach out if you haven't. You can follow me on Twitter if you're not already at BC_Richfield. If anybody has questions about the session yesterday as well, we're asking about the inside bar pattern, you can find that. That's been pinned to the top of my Twitter profile. And again, if you've got any questions, get yourself in the chat. Let's get this rolling forward. All right. And ultimately, this is the whole point. These resources here are to serve you, all right? So get them, make the most of them. And if you've got questions, just dive right in, all right? Thanks, everyone. Really great to have you all with us. Gassior, Angela as well. Chill Lee, still chuckling at that name, really liking it. Miguel, great to have you with us as always, mate. Jojo, wonderful Jojo. Imran Khan as well, my friend. Yarek, great to have you here as well, mate. And anybody else that maybe was in at the beginning. That I've forgotten about. I do apologize. Sonder as well. Sorry, he was with us. Any questions, guys, please do reach out. Going to be available in the chat along with the rest of the trading team. We've got KZM and Pitt back with us from tomorrow. So let's absolutely rock and roll. Have an amazing day, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you all around the nest.